Hello and welcome to A Spirited Debate. I'm Lauren Green. Well, one of the big reasons Donald Trump got a lot of support from evangelicals is their belief that he would protect religious liberties, something many felt were under attack in the Obama administration. The first test of that protector-in-chief title is the nomination of Judge Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court. His grilling Senate confirmation hearings are now underway. And here to discuss is Ellen Ratner, Bureau Chief of Talk Media News and a Fox News contributor, and Rabbi Hirschfield, President of the National Jewish Center for Learning and Leadership. Welcome to you both.
Good to be here.
Okay, Ellen, let me start with you, because how far can and should the Supreme Court go in protecting religious liberty?
Well, you know, if you look at the Bible, Exodus and Leviticus allow slavery. Now, that we know that that has passed its time, for sure. And I want to say that it is important to look at context in terms of religious liberty. And where Gorsuch has gotten into some trouble is around the Hobby Lobby decision, which I think is certainly past its time as well.
The only thing I want to say about that, because when you look through the Old Testament in the prison, from today, we get the wrong idea. I mean, it was different kind of slavery than we understand the context of Civil War slavery, race-based cattle kind of slavery. Very different. So I want to separate those two things. But, Rabbi, I want you to answer to that.
Right. They are very separable. It's important to note, though, to be fair, we wouldn't tolerate the kind of slavery envisioned by the Bible either. But it doesn't matter. Because the last thing we need here are straw men. And no one is arguing for preserving slavery. So if we want to talk about the specifics of any of the cases where Gorsuch has ruled, whether it's Hobby Lobby, the Ten Commandments in Oklahoma, or crosses for, dead veterans, we can, but no one's talking about slavery. So the first thing we would need to do on both sides of this issue is ratchet down arguments that aren't being made and that aren't real and talk about real circumstances that are. Because what is true is that in the previous administration, while I think it's not correct that people were under attack for their faith, it is true that progressives generally fail to appreciate that freedom of religion is not simply a matter of freedom of worship. That people of faith, at least many of them, express that faith not a couple of hours a week in a God box called a church or a temple or a mosque, but that it's a 24/7 deal, and it will affect and impact all areas of their life. And protecting that religious liberty, which is the question you first asked about, is clearly paramount, not just for the Supreme Court, but to the Constitution itself.
But one of the things the government then automatically gets involved in, and Alan, I want you to answer this, is that they basically get involved in what doctrines of faith actually can believe in. I mean, that really gets into that gray area. But how do you really separate, church and state?
Well, I think that you actually have to do a separation of church and state. My friend Barry Lynn, who is very involved in the Americans for Separation of Church and State, I think you have got to say that things such as allowing health care to deal with family planning is important. Now, that happens to be my view. It obviously isn't your view.
No, actually it is. Separation of church and state is very important, but Barry Lynn is a good example of someone who has confused the separation of church and state, where the wall must be high and strong. It is one of the bedrock commitments that make this country great, no question. But the separation of church and state is not the same as guaranteeing the absence of all religiosity from all parts of public life. Those are two different things. So, for example, with the Hobby Lobby case, the example would be, how do you protect women's access to every form of legal health care they want, no matter what, because that's an act of individual conscience, and at the same time protect people who might not want to pay for things that they find not only objectionable but morally reprehensible. And the truth is, both can be done if we wanted to.
But I want to say, because I want to bring in Neil Gorsuch at this point, because it's the Hobby Lobby case in particular that he actually agreed with. He ruled that companies deserve religious liberty or protection in the infamous case of Hobby Lobby. I mean, Ellen, in certain cases of that, I mean, do you think that, businesses should have a check on religious liberty? I mean, it's a privately owned company.
Listen, if somebody is offered health care which says they can do family planning, like in the Hobby Lobby case, they don't have to partake in it. They can say, hey, my religion says that I have to have children as, every time I get pregnant or whatever. And that's their choice. But to say that a company does not have to provide family planning when that is a huge issue in both the United States and the world right now, I think is crazy.
Okay, how far can you go, though? I mean, Rabbi, why don't you get your final thoughts on this? Because that really becomes one of the issues that you start, laying out there is like, how far can the government go to tell you what is your religious belief?
So I think that's the general rule. To protect a woman's access to that care is a bedrock commitment that has to be assured. That doesn't require necessarily people who don't support that woman's conclusion with paying for it. The bottom line is there is room for both on this. If people wanted to find that room that respected the religious integrity and the moral philosophy of all people, we could. That's a decision we have to make. I think that's where Gorsuch was heading in that decision, and I hope whatever decisions get made, it respects maximal liberty and respect for as many people as possible.
Okay, your final thoughts just real quickly. Do you think Neil Gorsuch is going to actually do the proper job of protecting religious liberties in the context of a civil government? Ellen?
I don't think he's going to, but he's going to get confirmed.
Okay. Rabbi?
He'll certainly get confirmed. I think I'll probably agree with him about 66% of the time, because in major cases, on one I really don't agree, on two I'm largely in agreement.
All right, I want to thank you very much, Rabbi and Ellen Ratner, for being here.
Thank you.
On A Spirited Debate. And for complete coverage on this topic, stay right here at foxnews.com. I'm Lauren Green, and thanks for watching. Great stuff. Great stuff.